So I've just gone ahead and salvaged the fuel out of my red 124 project by feeding it into a jerry can from the fuel supply hose. And as you can see, it's absolutely falling to pieces after 12 months. There's no way that is fuel rated hose, even though that's what I asked for. So cheers guys for almost killing me yesterday, having the car stall in a 100 zone, pulling into traffic because of the suction line collapsing. And if that wasn't going to be an issue, well, this was going to explode at some stage and burn the entire car down. So thanks guys. Next time I will never be going to you, the direct opposition of Pertec. I will only be dealing with Pertec, and hopefully they know what fuel rated rubber is and can actually make hoses that don't disintegrate in 12 months. So there you have it. And yes, all of these hoses here are NLA, so I've got no choice but to rebuild those. I have genuine ones on the way for the rear. That's not a problem, but up here, where it's really dangerous, no longer available. That's just fantastic. So what we have here is the cheapest W140 for sale in Western Australia. Yeah, that's right. It couldn't possibly be any more concerning. And yes, it does have random electrical problems, as you'd expect with a 140, such as indicators just staying on randomly and draining the battery when the car is parked, and the battery is completely stuffed. Currently running it off a bench power supply. So this is the M104 version of the 140, the first M104 version. I'll give you a closer look at what that engine looks like. So this engine might look somewhat familiar to some people. This is actually the second generation of the M104. This is actually 3.2 litres, and you'll notice there is an injector rail from the factory. So this is the M104 990. The 3 litre M104 was considered unacceptable for the M104, and this is the engine that was the solution to that problem. And this is what caused all future M104s to max out at 3.2 litres. So this is the 104 990. It has LH Jetronic electronic fuel injection. So no 140 has KE Jetronic. There's actually an airflow meter underneath this, between it and the throttle body. We can have a look at that. And of course it still uses a distributor ignition, which is kind of unfortunate, but it is what it is. And yes, there is an EZL. I'm not sure. I think it's buried under there somewhere. In many ways, this is a seriously over-engineered engine, particularly compared to the 3 litre. And it does have the additional cooling supply at the front there of the cylinder head. So it does look a lot like the 104 980 K-Jet 3 litre M104, but yeah, it's quite different on the inside. And obviously it's 3.2 litres, it's got a lot more low down torque to carry this behemoth of a vehicle around. The 3 litre would have been quite rev happy in a car of this size. Yeah, randomly the indicators just go on and off in this car, so not sure what's going on there. I'm not a 140 expert yet, so there'll be a lot of issues to nut out on this car. To my absolute astonishment, the soft close actually works on this vehicle still, but I believe the previous owner has messed around with that extensively. The interior is mismatched. It does come with the original seats, but these cream ones were in much better condition than the seats that were in the car, but of course they can be fixed up. Paint is not great. It does have clear coat failure on the roof, the hood and the rear lid. Basically you'd have to be nuts to want to restore one of these cars, but Tim is the kind of nut job that falls into that category. Realistically, you'd be better off buying one in good condition, because yeah, these can be an absolute nightmare. And the other thing I have not mentioned yet is that transmission is rooted. It's got either a failing main front pump, or there's a serious constriction in the fluid flow, because there's basically hardly any pressure. It slips in and out of gear. So it takes ages to engage. It's just absolutely a pile of junk. It needs a rebuild. But the engine, absolutely A1. And of course that electromechanical speedo and odometer, that has stopped. So it's currently showing 290,000 kilometers. But realistically it's probably 320 something thousand kilometers. The previous owner didn't get much use out of it before that transmission failed, and he decided to get another one. But we will probably drop that transmission out, or we will drop that transmission out and fix it up. I have more than enough spare parts to get that working again, or just rebuild it completely. Holy crap, that's dirty in there. But yeah, that's your EZL hiding up there. That's where it hides on the 140. There's a large amount of mouse droppings in there, so that's always a good thing to see. And yeah, the heater coil is bypassed at the moment. Hopefully it's not leaking and it's just a failed duo valve. But anyway, he's got the rebuild kit for that. Interestingly, there's a fuel cooler on these as well, like my 124, but considerably smaller. Yeah, that indicator's going ballistic. This is not a car you can leave connected to the battery, and there's some relay clicking away up there, so it's no doubt failing 90s electronics, dried out capacitors, or crack soldering, God knows. But yeah, steep learning curve ahead. For those playing along at home, the 104 990, this is the kind of engine that I got the crankshaft for my 980 in red, to increase it to a 3.2 litre, and I got second oversized 3.2 pistons, new old stock. So yes, one of these engines was sacrificed to make Red's ridiculously torquey 3.2 and a bit litre KE jet M104. And here's what it looks like underneath the air filter. So that's the airflow meter. It's a hot wire type, like on modern cars. Hence the H in LH Jetronic, and an electronic throttle body. Now, I'm not 100% sure if these suffer from biodegradable wiring harnesses. I hope not. So far it looks good. And it does have fail-safe operation of that throttle body, it seems. So in the case of electronics malfunction, it's still usable. And it is the old-fashioned 722.3 automatic transmission as well, so there's nothing fancy about this setup. Any idiot can service and rebuild those transmissions. And hey, a couple of idiots right here are going to. So we're just removing that airflow meter just to clean the junk that's resting on top of it. We might open up that air filter and see how filthy that is as well, just because Tim's planning to drive this thing home with its slush-o-matic, slip-o-matic transmission. He'll remove it at home and we'll bring it back here and tear it down when there's an opportunity. We're both kind of busy at the moment, so I don't know when that's going to happen. Maybe over the Christmas holidays, maybe after them. These are a great engine. I'd love to see someone actually fit it as is into a 124, particularly an old M103 version, and just run an aftermarket ECU to drive those injectors and the ignition coil. I think that'd be absolutely fantastic, because it is quite a torquey M104. You might have to retrofit a traditional throttle body on there though, I don't know how you'd get that working, but I'm sure it's possible. Just out of interest, you don't even need the electronics to drive this thing, because even just with the throttle cable, it opens at 100% anyway. Obviously the electronics just make it a bit smoother and a bit easier to actuate, but yeah, without the electronics, that thing's still going to work anyway, which is fantastic. And there is a oil to coolant heat exchanger hiding on that oil filter housing. Unlike the 980, that heat exchanger core is still available, so these are quite serviceable. I imagine the only reason it's still available is because these are such a rare engine and no one's replacing many parts on them. Most of these cars are going to the tip these days because they were so easy to drive. They've both, or all of them, have massive kilometres on them these days. I don't see anyone really restoring them. It would be nice to find one in great condition with low kilometres, but that's a really tall ask these days. So we're just checking out the springs on this car, because obviously it's a lot lower than it should be, and it appears some cock beater has actually cut a link or two off these springs. That will never pass registration like that. If you want to lower it, you need to use proper lowering springs, not butcher your original springs. Yeah, I had a feeling that was the case anyway. I knew we'd have to find some more springs for this car. Because, yeah, lowered cars suck. I'm sorry. They're just too hard to work on for an old bastard like me. So yeah, just confirmed that the front springs are in fact cut as well. So yeah, this car does not have many redeeming features, unfortunately. But hey, it's up to Tim to decide if he wants to fix it up or do something with it. Okay. Just going to do some pressure testing on this transmission while it's on the hoist here. There's lots of room on the 140 to do that compared to the 124, and you can see someone's made a note on there on the date that they've attempted to get some more life out of this old transmission, and made a note, well worn. I will take their word for it, because it is a complete piece of junk. But out of interest, I just want to see what kind of pressure it's producing. Whether it's, I don't know, something minor, I doubt it very much, or a total rebuild required.
Front flex disc.
One thing I will say about these 140s is that there's a hell of a lot of room to work down here. Like, removing this transmission is going to be so much easier compared to a 124. After that exhaust is removed anyway, there's just a ridiculous amount of room, especially on these 6 cylinders. You can see it's really designed for a much bigger engine and transmission bell housing to be in there. It's insane. So I'm just checking the modulation pressure on this transmission just out of interest. I know it's worn out. My gauge only goes up to 4 bar. Spec is 4.2, so yes, it is actually maxed out. Just put it in reverse and let's see how slowly it builds up pressure. Which is absolutely ridiculous. That ain't good. So it took that long to actually apply reverse. Put it in neutral. And this is with the vacuum modulator disconnected, by the way, so that's the absolute best it can do. Put it in drive. A little bit better, but clearly this transmission is seriously worn out. I'd suspect there'd be not much friction material left. Yeah. So yeah, we have to open it up and have a look at it closely. I'm pretty confident it's not just a blockage or anything simple like that. We're looking at a seriously worn out transmission, but we already knew that. Would I have bought it? Hell no. Not that crazy. Tim? Yeah, he's just the right kind of crazy. If it was up to me, that jerry can there, pour it all over the car and inside it, and throw a lit cigarette in there and just watch and laugh. Because that's how I feel about this car, to be perfectly honest. But anyway, it's not mine, it's Tim's. So let's see what we can do with it.